The journey of two young girls riding their scooters to the store for snacks took an unexpected and unsettling turn, with shocking details emerging. Throughout the years, numerous surprising twists unfolded in this tale, some of which seemed almost unbelievable, leading to a truly surprising conclusion. Michaela Garecht, born on January 24, 1979, in the picturesque city of Oakland, California, was the much-anticipated first child of her parents, after a 5-year wait. Following her arrival, two more siblings joined the family, and they all settled in the serene town of Hayward. This tranquil setting provided the perfect backdrop for their harmonious upbringing. Michaela, a vibrant and joyful child, cherished moments spent playing with her siblings and her closest companion, Katrina. Living in close proximity to each other, the girls shared countless hours of laughter and fun near their homes. On a delightful day, November 19th, 1988, as they prepared for a school performance during Thanksgiving break, Michaela and Katrina excitedly dashed between their houses, trying on various outfits. When Katrina's father handed her $1 for candy, the girls hurried to Michaela's house, seeking permission to visit the nearby store, a mere stone's throw away. Despite initial hesitations due to their young age and lack of solo shopping experience, Michaela's mother eventually relented, emphasizing the importance of a swift return after purchasing candy. Her protective instincts were heightened, especially towards Michaela, their cherished firstborn. Assured of their safety on such a short trip, the girls set off on their scooters, brimming with excitement. However, as they engaged in conversation after exiting the store, they inadvertently left their scooters behind, lost in the moment. As they strolled back home, they quickly realized their error and retraced their steps to where they had left the scooters. It was then that they discovered Michaela's scooter was nowhere to be found. Suspecting foul play, the girls split up and scoured the area from different angles in search of the missing scooter. Michaela ventured through the parking lot and soon laid eyes on her scooter nestled beside a car a short distance away from the store. As she made her way towards it, a blood-curdling scream pierced the air, causing Katrina to sprint back. To her horror, she witnessed a man forcibly dragging Michaela into the car parked next to her scooter. The man swiftly hopped into the driver's seat and sped off, leaving Katrina in a state of shock. She hurried back into the store and urgently informed the cashier of the distressing incident. The cashier wasted no time in contacting the authorities, who promptly arrived at the scene. Meanwhile, Michaela's father, who was acquainted with the store employee, was notified of the situation. He, along with Katrina's father, rushed to the store where investigators were already present. Instructing his wife to remain by the phone in case of any updates from the police, Michaela's father joined the detectives in their efforts. The lack of surveillance cameras near the store posed a challenge for the investigators, with Katrina being the sole witness to the abduction. Overwhelmed by shock, she was escorted home by her father. The store cashier provided a crucial lead, recalling a suspicious man loitering around the store before the incident. The man, described as white, approximately 30 years old, and sporting a distinctive mustache, had been seen lurking outside the store, peering through windows. The cashier's intuition hinted at a potential robbery plot. The man had arrived in an old maroon sedan, although specifics such as the model and license plate number remained elusive. Following the collection of information about the kidnapper, law enforcement authorities crafted a composite sketch and shared it with the press. The news of the abduction quickly circulated throughout the city and beyond, leaving the community astonished that such a bold act could take place near a bustling area. Additionally, they distributed the sketch and details about the suspect's vehicle to numerous patrol officers across the county. These officers began stopping any vehicles that matched the description in the hopes of locating the missing girl unharmed. Meanwhile, the investigators handed over Michaela's scooter to forensic specialists for analysis. They suspected that the kidnapper had observed Michaela and Katrina arriving at the store and intentionally positioned one of the scooters near the back door of his vehicle to aid in the abduction. This led them to believe that his fingerprints might be on the scooter, and indeed, they discovered a fingerprint that did not belong to anyone in Katrina's family or the 9-year-old girl. However, there was a complication. The fingerprint was incomplete, making it challenging to conduct a database search. During that period, the technology was not advanced enough for such procedures, so the authorities had to depend on direct comparisons with potential suspects. By the evening of the abduction, the Federal Bureau of Investigation had become involved in the case, as there had been an increase in child disappearances, not only in Hayward but also in neighboring cities. They suspected a potential link between Michaela's situation and these other disappearances. Despite the participation of the Federal Bureau of Investigation and extensive media attention, there was minimal progress in locating the missing girl. Understandably, Michaela's parents were devastated. Her mother blamed herself for the incident and recalled an unsettling occurrence that took place just a week before the abduction. Michaela had awoken unusually early one morning, sat at the kitchen table, and mentioned that she was composing a poem. This was unusual, as she was not known for waking up so early. She recounted being roused from her slumber by a disturbance in the attic, which sparked her creativity to craft a poem centered around individuals being taken and confined in attics, but not harmed. Initially, her mother found it peculiar for a 9-year-old to delve into such dark themes, yet, after the actual abduction occurred, it took on an eerie and almost mystical significance. The notion lingered in her mind. Had Michaela inadvertently foreseen her own destiny? In the aftermath of the abduction, law enforcement spared no effort in scouring for the perpetrator and the missing girl. Despite encountering numerous obstacles, their relentless pursuit yielded no progress in locating Michaela. Consequently, they opted to revisit Katrina, hoping she could shed more light now that some time had passed. Here, a perplexing twist awaited the investigators. The eyewitness to the abduction and the cashier provided starkly contrasting descriptions of the abductor's appearance. According to the witness, the man seemed to be approximately 20 years old, sporting disheveled, light-colored hair cascading down to his shoulders, and a complexion marred by acne. She also highlighted his piercing blue eyes, reminiscent of a fox's gaze. Katrina also recollected specific features of the vehicle: a beige sedan with a boxy silhouette and several dents. It dawned on the authorities that the cashier's depiction pointed to an entirely different individual. Her suspicions had been aroused by a man's dubious conduct near the establishment, whereas Katrina, who had genuinely witnessed the abduction, delineated a distinct man and vehicle. This posed a formidable challenge for the investigators. The dissemination of an erroneous composite sketch of the suspect to the media and patrol officers led to a wild goose chase for an entirely different person. All of this transpired within the critical initial 48 hours post-abduction, a pivotal window for a prompt resolution. Relying on the girl's detailed account, they expeditiously crafted a fresh composite sketch and circulated it once more. Furthermore, law enforcement authorities made the decision to question every man in the vicinity who had previous convictions for sexual offenses. In addition, a large number of volunteers participated in the search, going from house to speak with residents in the hopes of identifying the abductor or obtaining any valuable information. They distributed thousands of flyers containing the girl's picture and details of the incident. Within just a few days, an astonishing 42,000 of these flyers were handed out. Eventually, they received a promising lead after a few days. 3 individuals reached out to them, recounting a hiking trip they took in a vast national park near the city. While on their hike, experienced hikers stumbled upon footprints on the ground, recognizing one set as belonging to an adult and the other to a child. They decided to follow these tracks, eventually discovering a blanket and discarded fast food wrappers deep in the forest. The police began to consider the possibility that these tracks could be linked to Michaela and her abductor. The psychological profile created by experts from the Federal Bureau of Investigation also indicated that the abductor would likely take the victim to a location far away from civilization. Given the park's size and its proximity to the city, it seemed to fit perfectly with this theory. Detectives made the decision to search the park, utilizing all resources available. They searched the area on foot while helicopters equipped with thermal imaging technology scanned from above. Despite their extensive efforts, they were unable to locate the girl or any evidence. The police continued to search other parks, mountains, and remote areas, but unfortunately, all their efforts proved fruitless. Simultaneously, they received an overwhelming number of tips due to the widespread media coverage of the case. In the first month of the investigation alone, they received approximately 4,000 tips. Following up on each tip proved to be a significant challenge for the investigators. This case sparked widespread discussions among the elite residents of neighboring San Francisco and the affluent cities nearby. Prominent figures made impassioned pleas to the public, urging them to come forward with any information for the authorities. A generous reward of $70,000 was swiftly offered, and Michaela's image graced millions of milk boxes across the state. Despite the extensive community engagement and a plethora of leads, the detectives found themselves at a standstill. By the end of December, after a month and a half of relentless searching, the police reluctantly admitted that their progress was limited to sifting through thousands of leads. Subsequent months brought no further developments. The police continued to receive a flood of tips, diligently pursuing each one. Michaela's mother embarked on her own investigation, meticulously studying similar cases in a bid to uncover the identity of her daughter's abductor. All involved clung to the hope that the young girl was still alive, held captive by an unknown perpetrator. In 1991, detectives honed in on a 43-year-old man named Timothy Binner, and the more they delved into his background, the more disturbing it appeared. Binner had previously attracted police attention due to his suspicious behavior before Michaela's disappearance. He had been showering young girls with gifts, letters, and money, some of which contained unsettling Bible passages like, "I have chosen you," and "Be with me." Concerned parents reported him to the authorities, prompting an interrogation. Binner claimed innocence, stating he was merely trying to befriend lonely girls. However, his past revealed a troubling pattern. In 1985, he was dismissed from his job in Child Protective Services in Colorado for gathering personal information about young girls. Subsequently, he sent them gifts, money, and letters. A search of his van uncovered numerous photographs of children and Bible verses adorning the interior. Moreover, Binner had a previous arrest for trying to entice two young girls into his van, although no charges were brought against him. Binner frequently visited the graves of young girls in local cemeteries, spending an unusual amount of time there. However, the situation took an even darker turn. 6 months before Michaela's abduction, a 7-year-old girl disappeared in the area. Shortly after, Binner contacted the girl's mother, offering help and regularly visiting her home. He even wrote a letter to the authorities predicting that the next missing girl would be 9 years old. Several months later, Michaela, also 9 years old, was abducted. Following her disappearance, Binner made numerous calls to her mother, visited her home, and offered assistance. But the disturbing pattern did not stop there. In early December 1988, Binner sent a Christmas card to an FBI profiler he had previously spoken to. The card depicted a girl holding up 4 fingers. Shortly after, a 4-year-old girl went missing in the same town. Despite these unsettling circumstances, which served as circumstantial evidence, detectives obtained a search warrant for Binner's residence, where he resided with his wife. Unfortunately, they could not find any solid leads linking him to any of the abductions. When news of Binner's strange behavior made headlines, suspicions arose that he could be a serial killer. This resulted in harassment and attacks on him and his family, leading him to sue the city authorities for spreading false information, a case he won. Detectives continued to investigate him for several months, but ultimately determined that there was no concrete evidence connecting him to these crimes. Some detectives believed that he did not pose a threat to children, and that his peculiar behavior may not have been related to these cases. As a result, the police shifted their focus to other potential suspects. In December 1992, a significant breakthrough finally emerged, 4 years after Michaela's disappearance. An inmate from Indiana, incarcerated for robbery, reached out to the authorities claiming to have information about the girl's abductor. Despite initial skepticism from investigators, the inmate's story gained traction after he penned a letter to a prestigious San Francisco newspaper. Under mounting public scrutiny, the police relented and decided to interview the inmate. He pledged not only to reveal Michaela's burial location, but also to identify the killer. Transported to California, he joined forces with law enforcement on a search operation. Allegedly, the body was buried in a gladiolus field, prompting an intense search effort in that vicinity. After 8 hours of scouring the area, the inmate confessed to fabricating the entire tale, motivated by a desire to console Michaela's family. This deceit earned him an additional 6.5 years behind bars, along with a $6,000 compensation order for the victim's family. Fast forward to August 2000, a fresh suspect emerged in the form of Curtis Anderson, implicated in a prior murder case involving a 7-year-old girl from Vallejo. While Anderson admitted to the crime and was incarcerated, suspicions lingered about his potential involvement in other similar offenses. 7 years passed without concrete evidence until Curtis, ailing and seeking redemption, reached out to the Federal Bureau of Investigation to confess to additional crimes before his demise. In accordance with his confession, he admitted to the murders of 13 additional girls and women, including the 7-year-old girl who vanished 6 months prior to Michaela. The specific details he provided led investigators to take his involvement very seriously. Nevertheless, proving his culpability remained a formidable task due to the absence of physical evidence and the inability to locate the victims' bodies. When it came to Michaela's case, Curtis vehemently denied any connection despite the uncanny resemblance of his vehicle to Katrina's description. The Federal Bureau of Investigation agents had intentions to further interrogate him, but Curtis tragically passed away in 2012. Another potential suspect emerged. A prisoner reached out to the authorities, asserting that his accomplice, Loren Herzog, bore a striking resemblance to the composite sketch of the suspect in the Michaela case. Detectives were captivated as Loren and his partner had been convicted of murders they committed together. They were suspected of taking the lives of 19 individuals, yet only some of those crimes could be proven. A month before his accomplice contacted the authorities, Loren took his own life in prison. Nevertheless, the police opted to explore his potential involvement. A photograph of Loren from his younger years did bear a resemblance to the composite sketch, but detectives required additional evidence. They made the decision to excavate a well where Loren and his partner had disposed of their victims' remains. Thousands of bone fragments were discovered, which were subsequently examined by medical professionals. Following thorough analysis, it was concluded that the bones belonged to 5 different girls, none of whom matched Michaela's DNA. Despite inspecting numerous wells, the authorities were unable to find any evidence linking Loren to the case. In 2018, a significant breakthrough occurred in the investigation. A man by the name of David Mish was charged with the murders of 2 women in 1986 near Michaela's town. The pivotal advancement in this case was the utilization of modern DNA analysis. In the past, the examination of the biological material discovered beneath the victim's nails was beyond their capabilities. However, with the evolution of technology, they were able to establish a connection between David and these heinous acts. David, who was already incarcerated for the murder of his 39-year-old girlfriend in 1989, came under scrutiny by detectives for his potential involvement in Michaela's case. Intriguing links were uncovered, revealing that David was present in the vicinity when Michaela was abducted. Furthermore, he bore a resemblance to Katrina's description and owned a similar vehicle. Given that David's fingerprints were already on file, experts reanalyzed the partial fingerprint recovered from Michaela's scooter. Thanks to advancements in modern technology, a significant breakthrough was achieved. The fingerprint on the scooter was a perfect match to David's. Subsequently, in 2020, David was indicted for Michaela's murder, extinguishing any lingering hope of her survival. Despite his denial of any wrongdoing, the case proceeded to trial. Early in 2023, preliminary hearings were conducted, and the judge determined that there was sufficient evidence to move forward with the trial. David's legal counsel endeavored to dispute the evidence, contending that the fingerprint on the scooter did not definitively implicate his client in the murder. However, in this particular scenario, such a claim appeared dubious, given the deliberate placement of the scooter next to the rear door of his vehicle to facilitate the abduction of the girl. The defense also sought to challenge the murder charges on the grounds that Michaela's body had never been recovered, implying a lack of evidence of her demise. Nevertheless, this argument held little weight in contemporary times, as numerous convictions have been secured without the physical retrieval of victims' bodies. Furthermore, the substantial evidence against David was compounded by his extensive history of violent offenses. At the age of 16, he committed a home invasion and assaulted a woman at knife point. Following a year of imprisonment, he was granted early release only to engage in another assault on a different woman shortly thereafter. Despite serving an additional 2-year sentence, he was once again released into society. In the month of May in the year 1988, a mere 7 months prior to the tragic abduction of Michaela, David found himself in the clutches of the law due to a store robbery. His punishment was a year behind bars, but fate smiled upon him as he was set free just a month before Michaela's disappearance. The father of the young girl journeyed from a distant state to grace the press conference that revealed the capture of his daughter's abductor. Alas, Michaela's mother, who harbored hopes of reuniting with her daughter, was unable to attend due to her valiant battle with cancer. Shortly after the news of the arrest, she departed from this world, expressing gratitude to the investigators for unveiling the truth before her final breath. The authorities vowed to persist in their quest to locate Michaela's remains and offered a substantial reward of $10,000 for any pertinent information. The impending trial of David Misch will encompass 3 cases, that of Michaela and 2 others where his DNA was discovered beneath the victim's fingernails. Initially, the prosecution sought the ultimate penalty, but a change in district attorneys led to the decision to forego it. Should David be convicted of all 3 heinous crimes, he will not face a life sentence, but rather several decades of imprisonment. This verdict has stirred up a storm of indignation among the families of the victims and has captured the attention of the media, with David's legal counsel standing as the sole proponent of this alteration. Nevertheless, at the age of 62, David's chances of outliving even this reduced sentence are slim. It is a poignant realization that the correctional system, in its repeated acts of premature release despite his criminal past, inadvertently paved the way for Michaela's tragic demise. Had he not been set free just a month before the dreadful incident, perhaps the young girl would still be gracing this world with her presence today.